How's the royal family? I pray that everyone is doing well. Well, my royal family, I'm on my grind. I've been gone way too long. And again and again and again, I truly appreciate everyone in the royal family. So, my royal family, we are not going to lose sight. Next Friday coming up, this murderer, Kim Potter, will be sentenced live. All right? Live. Excuse me. That's going to happen periodically. Ooh, I'll be glad when this whole thing is over with me. So, let me pull up this calendar. So, Friday, February 18th, she will be sentenced. And the enemy is vastly concerned. But she all smiles. Oh, she got some trickeration for your ass. I have nothing to read, my royal family. I just have some videos that I'm going to present. An audio first. A little short snippet of an audio. We're going to jump around here.
Minnesota AG submits reasons for longer sentence for Kim Potter. Minneapolis, Croc AM News. Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison has filed legal briefs in the Kim Potter case that give his reasons for a longer prison sentence than what is called for under state sentencing guidelines. The former Brooklyn Center police officer was convicted in December in the fatal shooting of Daunte Wright last year. A Hennepin County jury convicted her of first and second-degree manslaughter, and she is facing a presumptive prison sentence of 86 months. Ellison is seeking a longer sentence based on two factors. Potter's conduct caused a greater than normal danger to the safety of others, and she abused her position of authority as a law enforcement officer. As a police officer in full uniform who had stopped and detained Mr. Wright, defendant had a defined relationship of authority over Mr. Wright and was in a position to dominate and control him. Defendant's position authorized her to use reasonable force to restrain and arrest Mr. Wright, permitting defendant to manipulate the circumstances of the incident. Defendant had been trained extensively over her 26-year career on the force options available to officers and when it might or might not be reasonable to use a particular force option. She received this training by virtue of her position, a position that authorizes her to use force, but only reasonable force, to accomplish a legal objective, such as making an arrest. It was exactly this authority and position that enabled defendant to stop Mr. Wright's vehicle in the first place, which then led to a decision to arrest, and resulted in defendant reaching for a weapon and, ultimately, committing the crimes for which she has been convicted. In doing so, defendant clearly failed to uphold her end of the special social contract between police officers and the community. Rather than using only reasonable force, defendant blindly drew her duty handgun and fired a bullet through Mr. Wright's heart, killing him. As a result, defendant abused the faith, trust, and authority that had been placed in her by virtue of her special position as a police officer. That alone makes defendant's crime substantially more serious than similar conduct committed by a non-officer or civilian. Accordingly, the court should conclude that the record supports a finding that defendant abused her position of trust or authority. Arguments on Ellison's motion will be heard before Potter is sentenced. She is scheduled to be sentenced on February 18th.
All right, my royal family. Let me take that down.
Man killed by truck.
Take that down. All right, my royal family. So essentially, you heard the law. All right? The law. They broke it down. The law. And I'm overemphasizing that for a special reason. And y'all will understand fully. So the prosecutor, the DA, or whatever you want to call him, is requesting, what did it say? I think they said 89 months. So the enemy is vastly concerned that there are some special circumstances thrown in. And I'm going to let the royal family listen to what they have to say. But before I get into that, let me refresh the royal family's memory.
After that,
I remember a struggle with Officer Lucky and the driver at the door. The driver was trying to get back into the car.
Well, he was trying to get back in the car. What did you do?
I went around Officer Lucky as they're trying to get back in the door. I'm between the door and Officer Lucky and the driver. And the driver's getting into the car.
And what happened next?
They're still struggling, and I can see Sergeant Johnson and the driver struggling over the gear shifts, because I can see Johnson's hand, and then I can see his face.
And you knew Johnson for many years before this, is that right?
Yes.
And by looking at his face at that point in time, what did you interpret it to mean?
He had a look of fear on his face. It's nothing I've seen before.
Did you say anything when you saw this? What did you do?
We were struggling. We were trying to keep him from driving away. It just went chaotic. And then I remember yelling, "Taser, taser, taser," and nothing happened. And then he told me I shot him.
All right, my royal family, let me shut this down.
Every time I pay.
Shut this down. Let's
When
shut
I
this
first started, I
down.
didn't know it was a pet because I did not.
You know what gets me, my royal family, all smiles? How the enemy is in great fear. Now, I have often said that I hold people to a higher standard based on their profession. She has many years' experience. In fact, she was in training mode. And I cannot understand what kind of bullshit ass fear they had with Daunte Wright. He had fear because he know the police will kill you. Okay, we're going to start there. He know they will kill you because he's seen many videos too. He know they will beat your ass. So he felt something in his gut, fear. Now, I don't understand how anyone, because I have a taser. Taser's a lightweight opposed to a gun. All right? Now, the question that I do ask the royal family, and I'll give my opinion at the end of all of this, how much time do you think she will really get? Will she get what the prosecutor is asking for special circumstances? Well, the enemy is getting concerned because they're hearing more not guilties. Y'all are putting yourself in these positions because y'all want to continue for infamy to terrorize us. My royal family, I have been saying like a broke ass record about my visions or a particular vision, and I'm seeing it come true. I am astounded, but I'm not overzealous, and I try my best not to be foolish. I know what dying system I have been subjugated to. I'm affected by the system. This is still the enemy's system. So even though we hear these things, when it comes to us, when they say they, they use the grand jury and do what they do with the grand jury, and it might go one way or the other, that's supposed to suffice. Then they go through the whole trial, and that they may say guilty. Then we have to wait for the sentencing. Then we also got to brace ourselves because the families might coon out. You just never know. You just never know. It's always some type of antics. But remember this, my royal family. Henceforth, they can do right by us. Henceforth, you cannot satisfy royalty. So, we have not lost sight whatsoever. And don't come over here when we want to have a celebration. I get tired of our own folks coming over here. Don't celebrate. Don't do this and that. Get your ass off of my channel when it comes to that. Now, I'll be respectful and all, but sometimes I feel some kind of way when I'm told what to do, because I feel what I feel at that particular time. I ain't lost sight. Can't satisfy royalty. Can we satisfy Yahweh, his own children? No, we can't satisfy him. So I just wanted to put that out, my royal family. So now we are going to get into their concerns.
Into a woman walking with her 8-month-old daughter, and then police body cam captures the daring rescue as officers work to free the little girl from underneath that car. Those officers will join us live. But first, remember Kim Potter, the former Minneapolis police officer who said she confused her handgun for her taser when she shot and killed 20-year-old Dante Wright? She was convicted in December of first and second-degree manslaughter. Now prosecutors want her sentenced well above what the Minnesota sentencing guidelines call for, which is a maximum of 15 years. And to be clear, in a case like hers, someone with no criminal history, the Minnesota guidelines suggest a sentencing range of just more than 6 to about 8.5 years. But this is not just another case. Despite the fact that everyone agrees it was a mistake, this is one where the prosecutors, since the beginning, have been under enormous political pressure to try to go beyond the guidelines. Now here, again, a reminder of that shooting and her reaction afterwards. Look, I felt real sympathy for Kim Potter, but as a legal matter, also believed that her actions fit the definition of first-degree manslaughter. I would have been stunned if she'd been acquitted. I thought a hung jury could happen, but it was either that or a conviction. But that does not mean that what she did is worse than other people convicted of first-degree manslaughter in Minnesota. It is clear that she did not do this on purpose. But you wouldn't know that from the brief filed yesterday by prosecutors who basically made two main arguments. First, They say her conduct caused a greater than normal danger to the safety of others. They said in part about Wright ultimately crashing his car after being shot, quote, several witnesses explained that 63 Avenue is a busy street, this heightened likelihood that disabling the driver of a vehicle would injure others, and that is exactly what happened. After defendant shot Mr. Wright's vehicle traveled eastbound down the street and struck the Lundgren's vehicle. They also argued that Potter also put the officers with her and the passenger in Wright's vehicle in particular danger, saying defendant also created a great risk of harm to Officer Lucky and her supervisor, then Sergeant Johnson. Defendant created a risk that the bullet she fired would either go through her intended target or that defendant's shot would miss Mr. Wright altogether and strike Officer Lucky. But listen to those words. All of this, including the cases that they cite, treat it like it was an intentional shooting, not one that everyone agrees was accidental. Reckless, yes. Criminal, yes. Intentional, no. Second reason prosecutors cited was because they say she abused her position of authority as a law enforcement officer. Defendant's position of public trust and authority is reflected by the Brooklyn Center Police Department's policies and the testimony presented at trial. Police officers have an incredibly important role in society, though which she holds a special social contract with the public. Again, if the shooting was intentional, I understand using that against her. But it was reckless, it was negligent. Potter's defense responded that it was Daunte Wright who decided to try to drive away, crashing into the other vehicle, and that her fellow officers said she acted accordingly. Quote, Officer Potter can't be held responsible for Mr. Wright's decisions. He was required by law to obey the officers' collective orders. They had the absolute right to arrest him. He alone did what he intended to do, driving into his own abyss that day. He caused the subsequent accident. Quote, the officers on the scene agree with Officer Potter's attempt to stop Wright. Officer Lucky testified that the use of a taser was entirely appropriate. Sergeant Johnson told the jury he would have been killed if Wright had driven away. They also went after the prosecution's claim that she should face a stiffer sentence because she was a police officer, something they called political. Officer Potter's sentencing grid is an artificial construct defined by the Attorney General, whose constituency asks for higher time in this case. Whose voice is the Attorney General hearing? Is it the defunding movement that neglects to read the data, where a decrease in police investigation and presence has led to an increase in crime? Look, putting aside the more political arguments, Potter's attorneys are right. A sentence of 15 years or higher just seems like an effort to cave to the mob. Calling for a stiffer sentence like that? Look at some other manslaughter 1 convictions in Minnesota. Derek Blanton was convicted for fatally shooting his girlfriend's ex-boyfriend in 2018. A jury found Blanton guilty of first-degree manslaughter, believing he was acting in the heat of passion. But he still intentionally shot. 8.5 years. Michael Cordell Garland from St. Paul, Minnesota, fatally shot his childhood friend after a dispute over a firearm. Sentenced to 8 years and 7 months. They're asking for over 15 years here. Potter will be sentenced on February 18th. We reached out to the Minnesota Attorney General, Keith Ellison. He declined to appear. But we're thrilled to have Kelly Mitchell, the executive director of the Robina Institute at the University of Minnesota School of Law, who also previously served as the executive director of the Minnesota Sentencing Guidelines Commission. So she really knows how these guidelines work. And once again, we're thrilled to have back criminal defense attorney April Prayar. Good to see you both. April, let me start with you. What do you think I'm getting wrong here?
I'm not sure you're getting anything wrong, especially when you point to the other defendants who have gotten about 8 years, just a little bit above what people were expecting Ms. Potter to get. The state's major argument is the first one, that the greater than normal risk or danger or safety to others was created by her actions. So by pulling the weapon, because the mistake, as we know, is not a defense to this crime or really to any crime, and that in doing so, that she shot into a moving car, that she could have injured or killed the driver, the passenger, other officers, and that car not only as a result of her actions could have caused an accident, but in fact did cause an accident, and Mr. Lundgren's health has declined as a direct result of this. So I'm saying their best argument is their first argument. I think the second prong is the more difficult one, simply by saying that she was in uniform is therefore an aggravating factor. I'm not sure that works.
Right. Let me ask Kelly Mitchell, though. You heard April say that mistake isn't a defense, but it is relevant in sentencing. It's not a defense in this case. She was clearly convicted. They determined she was reckless, she was negligent. But it does seem to me very relevant in the context of sentencing. And it feels to me like the prosecution is setting the standard and comparing it to other cases where people made the decision to be reckless. They chose to do something that was, particularly dangerous in pulling out their weapon and firing. Kelly, am I misreading this?
So, in Minnesota, we do base the typical sentences on the actual offense of conviction, right? So we have to start with how is this offense defined in the first place? And then the judge does have the ability to take into account the particular circumstances of the individual when actually setting the sentence. So that might be, that might cause the judge to go to the lower end of the range within that cell, maybe even go to the higher end of the range, sort of depending on what's relevant at that time. So that's where the judge, might be thinking about mistake versus intentionality in the way that this crime was committed.
But the range you're talking about is the 6 to 8 and 7 months or whatever it is range, which I think makes perfect sense. What prosecutors are asking for here is more than 15 years, which just seems completely off the grid, so to speak, when it comes to Minnesota law. Am I wrong, Kelly?
So it's not entirely wrong. The way that it works in Minnesota is that whatever the presumptive sentence is, if there are aggravating factors that support an aggravated sentence, a sentence is longer than called for in the guidelines, the judge has the ability to depart up to twice the presumptive sentence. So the judge could go up to 2 times above this 86 months, presumptive range. But the reality is that those cases are rare. And, in the past 20 years, for the 100 cases that have been for people who have been convicted of first-degree manslaughter, only 6 people have been given that 15-year sentence.
But this isn't like every other case. I think, April, there's enormous political pressure, not just on the prosecutors, which is the reason I think that they asked for this this additional sentence, but I think there's going to be enormous pressure on the judge to potentially issue a sentence harsher than would ordinarily be the case.
I'm not sure that that's going to be the case. So I think that there are other factors at play. 1, Ms. Potter is a woman. 1, 2, she is a mother. 3, she was a police officer at the time. I think all of those loom large in the judge's mind as well. And the judge is a woman. And I think all of that, whether it gets spoken or unspoken, is going to be at play. I think the judge will have in her mind, okay, if I sentence her to this many years, how long will she be away from her children? So I think all those are factors that are probably weighing on her greater than the political pressure. As we know, judges are supposed to stay middle of the line and be unbiased and not be swayed by political pressure. But yes, the prosecutor's office definitely has that pressure to say, we did everything we could to get this family the justice that they deserve. And now whether it plays out in the way that they hope or not, we have yet to see.
Well, April, and what I like about you is that you do focus on the unspoken, which is the realities, right? It's not just sort of what ordinarily happens. It's the human side of this. And I am very concerned about the fact that it seems these prosecutors want to treat her more harshly than in other cases where people intentionally shot somebody else. And that seems to me to be a complete and total travesty. But we shall see what happens, because none of us know for certain. I am hoping that the judge remains fair and objective in this case. Kelly Mitchell and April Prayar, thank you so much for coming on the show. Appreciate it.
Just coning. At the end of the day. Now you see my royal family? He took 2 black men and threw it up in our face with his greasy ass. You greasy, Abrams, as usual. And you ain't never expressed wholeheartedly your feelings when it comes to black men who overwhelmingly get prosecuted. That was a unquote black on black crime. You don't give a damn about those unquote N-words getting murdered in the heat of passion or whatever the particular circumstances may be. I felt like the white woman was speaking truth, because you see what her title was. She deal in sentencing and stuff. What I think will happen, I think that they will go the latter at the end of the day, even though I was surprised that she was even prosecuted, because how this system, this unquote, again, dying system gets down. But I don't trust the system whatsoever. I would be utterly surprised her smiling ass get the max. Because, they all work in the same arena. Now, I feel like the judge was sensible and all these type of things like that. But, man, there's pressure on everyone in this particular situation. Now, I don't understand how this is political, because they don't give a damn about us. I don't know where the political pressure is coming in. Y'all want us to have sympathy for this murderer. That's it, and that's all. Oh, she cried and all that. There wasn't no damn tears. That's why I showed the video that I showed. Those were dry ass tears. All that shaking, and then saying that this other officer would have possibly got killed. How was that other officer was going to possibly get killed? He didn't have no weapon on him. Don't stand in the damn front of a car. That should just be common ass sense. But Daunte Wright, he feared for his life. Even once them bullets went through him, he was still trying to get out of the way, because he know how they get down at the end of the day. Now, I know that they gonna throw up, because I already seen it repeatedly, that he has done crimes in the past. One does not have to do with the other. And that's essentially what they are saying. Oh, give her a slap on the wrist. So the likelihood of her getting 15 years, I don't see it. I don't see it. They're going to harp on that she had never, unquote, committed any offensives and got a, unquote, squeaky clean record and all that. And we know all of that is lies. All right? That she is part of that system, that good old boy system. All right? And she demonstrated to her own to have the position that she had, that she about that life at the end of the day. And she showed that. She was showing out. She know the difference. She was training them. Now all of a sudden you want her to look all frumpy like a little grandmama in the most frumpy ass clothes, and you want people to feel a certain kind of way. Have anybody ever felt a certain kind of way when y'all knowingly will prosecute us, knowingly withhold evidence? We can be up there crying and all that kind of stuff. Have our whole family up there. Y'all don't give a damn. And we don't give a damn either at the end of the day. You cannot satisfy royalty. But my royal family, they are vastly concerned because things are not going in their favor. And we will continue to see this because of their nature. You cannot train this shit out of them. All right? They fully embrace their nature. And I fully embrace mine. So you do whatever you do, my royal family, with your nature. But remember this. Remember this. You can't satisfy royalty. Never be satisfied. There's no gesture that y'all can make whatsoever to ever satisfy the true royal family. So what I need you to do is to render your voice with your beautiful divine words. And it's always, my royal family, I thank you for your love. I thank you for your support. And with that said, Ashe. We'll see y'all Friday, my royal family, February 18th. Oh, it's going to be live and popping. We shall see the bullshit go down. Ashe.